The Shark Deck.
Hello and welcome to Palace Intrigue. I am your host, Mark Francis. William is still mad at Harry. Also, today is a day that ends in Y. Royal author Tom Quinn told The Express, "People I've spoken to who work for both William and Kate say this is never really going to be healed." He added that palace staff have confirmed that privately there's a lot more anger than there is publicly, especially about the accusation William physically assaulted Harry. Apparently, William is furious. The royals were hoping Harry would have stayed in town a little longer, royal expert Nick Bullen told Us Weekly. "I heard from somebody who was actually involved on the day that up until the morning of the ceremony, nobody really knew what Harry's plans were going to be for that afternoon. I think everybody knew he had a plane to catch, but there was a hope, I think, that he might be part of some of the family celebrations back at the palace. But they all knew he was going to get on that plane. He loves Harry. He might not like what he's doing, but he loves him and there's a weakness there for him. He doesn't want to lose him as a son." Royal expert Ian Pelham called Charles soft. Speaking to Fox News Digital, Pelham said, "When talking to other royal commentators, we agree perhaps the king is too soft to solve the issue. However, now that he is king, it may give him a new desire to deal with the situation as he wishes to remain popular with all communities. Commonwealth countries are watching his reign closely, and he really has, in my opinion, to show compassion to Meghan to keep people of colour on his side. He cannot afford a reign with the dissolution of the Commonwealth due to the perception that any prejudice, founded or unfounded, came into play." Royal expert Christopher Anderson added, "Harry's presence offered a ray of hope that some sort of reconciliation is at least possible, and that he is still loyal on some level to his father, the royal family, and the monarchy. At the same time, if Charles really wanted to put all the acrimony behind him, he would have made at least some small gesture. A wink, a nod, a smile, pretty much anything in Harry's direction. Once again, as predicted, Harry was largely ignored because he is not a working royal. I just don't get the feeling that Charles is all that upset about the situation, other than it does not reflect well on him, and he is damaging to the institution of the monarchy. Both sides have moved well beyond the hurt feelings stage." Writing for the Daily Mail, Sarah Vine wonders if Harry has a plan B. "All of us, exasperated by Harry's destructive and self-destructive behaviour, individuals, old and young, who have tried at various times to talk some sense into him, to save him from himself, and who appear to have been systematically shut out of his life, as if punished for daring to contradict his increasingly toxic and paranoid narrative. And where has it got him? Up a creek without a paddle, that's where, because if the coronation showed us anything at all about the future of the royal family, it's that Harry is not in any meaningful sense a part of it. In just a few short years, he has gone from being the adored youngest son to a scowling and irrelevant presence. With his grandmother no longer around to keep the peace, it's remarkable how quickly the royal waters have closed over him, washing away every trace of the glittering future that once was his. He cut a terribly sad figure at the Abbey, arriving alone in a Dior suit which had clearly not been properly pressed. That's another disadvantage of being a civilian, no valet, and the Duchess had obviously forgotten to pack the portable iron. Obscured for much of the proceedings by Princess Anne's magnificent red plume, when Harry was in view he seemed glum and downcast. A lip reader spotted him telling Jack Brooksbank, husband of Princess Eugenie, that he was fed up, although whether that related to the event itself or life in general is unclear. Barely anyone acknowledged his presence, and both his father and elder brother seemed to ignore him. While his brother's 3 children stole the show, Harry's 2 were thousands of miles away, denied their place in history. Quite apart from the personal tragedy of the situation, it inevitably raises the question of where Prince Harry goes from here. He still has 2 books to deliver as part of his multi-million-pound deal with Penguin Random House, but what is there left for him to say? As the Duchess of Sussex's children's book and podcast prove, there is little appetite beyond the couple's sycophantic cheerleaders for the worthy anodyne virtue signalling stuff. People want the dirt. That's what sells. But dishing more of it will only distance himself even further from the royal family and ultimately from the source of his rapidly diminishing star power. Because what Prince Harry seems to have overlooked in his grand master plan is that his principal currency, the reason anyone took any interest in him in the first place, was his association with the very thing he has tried to destroy, the British monarchy. Meghan Kelly floated a nightmare scenario for Harry and Meghan, although this one is hopefully decades and decades away. Remember that cute 10-year-old boy at Charles' coronation, George? Well, one day he will be king. In a conversation with GB News, Kelly said, "Meghan and Harry are insanely jealous, and you know what they are going to be calling Princess Kate and Princess William's children? King. They are jealous of that." We've done some napkin math. Prince William is 40. Let's say he passes away in his 90s, as his grandparents did. Meghan doesn't need to worry about King George until the 2070s, at which point Meghan herself will be in her 90s. Meghan Kelly will be barking up the wrong tree. Meanwhile, Meghan has reportedly hired Kim Kardashian's former bodyguard, Steve Stanulus, who also used to bodyguard for Kim, but who is not Meghan's new hire, told The Sun that Markle might have hired the highly sought-after security for clout. These are guys who come from a small pool of elite bodyguards from either police or military backgrounds. Usually if a guy is good enough to work for high-profile stars, it's not unusual for them to be sought after. Not only for protection, but also for clout. It looks good. Palace Intrigue will be right back. Hey, I want to tell you about HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Now that the coronation is over, the spring sunshine is here, and it's calling your name. So don't call for takeout, get HelloFresh instead. And in a moment, I'm going to tell you how to get 16 meals free. With HelloFresh, you can pick from over 40 weekly recipes, but you can choose from over 100 items to round out your order, from snacks and easy lunches to desserts and pantry necessities. So I got a chance to try the Santa Fe pork tacos with Monterey Jack and lime slaw the other night. I mean, to go out and get all these ingredients would take you an hour at the grocery store, and then you have to do all the prep work and the chopping, and then there's all this waste. But with HelloFresh, you get exactly what you need in one convenient kit. It took about 15 minutes to make and super delicious. You can even control the spice if you like them a little hotter. Delicious. So right now, you can get 16 free meals when you go to HelloFresh.com and use the code PALACE16. It's PALACE16. That's because, we're Palace Intrigue, and it's 16 free meals. HelloFresh.com, code PALACE16, and you'll also get free shipping. It doesn't get any easier. HelloFresh.com and use the code PALACE16. And we here at Palace Intrigue thank you for supporting our sponsors.
I'm Nina Hobson, ex-police detective from the UK. I've worked on every crime mentionable, from murder to kidnap to stalking to fraud. When I left the force, I launched my own investigations firm that soon became a global operation. I'm also a single mother of two, to two members of my team, my son Harrison and daughter Amy. Every week, we'll be getting first-hand accounts from psychological experts, operatives, former criminals, actual victims of the crimes that we investigate, and of course, my very own flesh and blood. From Storic Media, you're listening to Codename Siren, a true crime podcast. Available on YouTube and all major podcast platforms.
The Washington Post took a look at Prince William's ancestry, and it turns out the next king may be a little bit American, 1/16th American, thanks to Diana. William's lineage traces back to Benajah Strong, who was battling English troops when the first shots were fired in 1775. Joseph Stoltz is the library director at the Society of the Cincinnati, a hereditary group dedicated to the Revolutionary War. Stoltz told the Post, "This speaks to the bond between Great Britain and America, as the American Revolution was more like the American Civil War in the 1860s, with many on both sides knowing each other. The first Strong ancestor immigrated from England to New England in 1635, and Benajah Strong, William's sixth great-grandfather, was born in 1740 in Coventry, Connecticut. He signed on as a private in the Connecticut militia. It is ironic that William's ancestor kicked off the fight against the Crown forces," Stoltz said. Website as.com speculated on how much some of the recent royal items on display are worth. So Edward's crown, or the imperial crown, weighs nearly 5 pounds and made of solid gold. It carries more than 400 gemstones, including 6 sapphires and 12 rubies, and is complete with a velvet cap and an ermine band. Officially, the crown jewels are priceless since they are not insured. However, if appraised, they would be estimated at almost $6 billion. King Charles' crown, thought to be worth nearly $57 million, with nearly 2 kilos of gold used to construct the crown. Their worth exceeds $145,000 today. The sovereign's scepter has been used at every coronation since Charles II's in 1661. The bejeweled golden wand weighs 3 pounds and has 333 diamonds, 31 rubies, 15 emeralds, 7 sapphires, and other precious gemstones. Its greatest detail, though, is the Great Star of Africa, or the Cullinan I, which was gifted to King Edward VII for his birthday in 1905 by the government of the Transvaal in South Africa. With a whopping 530.2 carats, Cullinan I is the largest clear-cut diamond in the world, worth an estimated $400 million. Considering the value of gemstones, the scepter is possibly worth several $1 million more. Then there is the sovereign's orb, a hollow gold sphere with a band of emeralds, rubies and sapphires dating back to 1661. When Charles I spent £1,150 on the orb when he made it in 1661, that's nearly $290,000 in today's money, still the orb itself would be worth much more due to its significance, history and stones. So how many people worked for the king? In 2022, Insider calculated 1,133 royal employees, including a carpet planner and deputy yeoman of the plate pantry. The Guardian shares the palace dismissed Insider's database of staff as a series of ill-informed and baseless claims. However, King Charles seems committed to keeping his end up in terms of flunkies. The 2022 annual review of Clarence House, Charles' residence since 2003 alone, revealed it employed the equivalent of 101 full-time staff, including 4 chefs, 5 house managers, 3 valets and dressers, and a couple of butlers. The Guardian took a look at some of the jobs, which we'll share with you during the week. They call the piper to the sovereign the worst alarm clock ever. The sovereign's day starts at 9 a.m. with the royal piper providing 15 minutes of bagpipe bangers outside his window. That's 2 sessions of 7 minutes with a brief returning break. The role of the piper to the sovereign was established in 1843 by Queen Victoria because she liked bagpipes, and it is, the BBC claims, one of the most coveted roles in the piping world. The lucky current 17th incumbent is Pipe Major Paul Burns. Burns travels with the monarch. There's no escape from the pipes, even on tour, and is the only non-royal allowed to wear Balmoral tartan, which is quite the perk. And there you have it. If you'd like to email us, our address is thepalaceintrigue@gmail.com. Please follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or your podcast app of choice. I'm Mark Francis. My thanks to John McDermott. This is Palace Intrigue. Good times.